Okay, welcome to Power Pivots, the podcast where we'll explore the stories behind the fundamental career shifts and changes that have made all the difference. I'm your host. I go by Hatu, and today we are joined by
Fatima Diko, and excited to chat with Hatu today.
Fatima Diko. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I feel like this is going to be a good conversation.
I'm excited too. It's been a long time coming, but we're getting it done.
Made it happen. We made it happen.
No, exactly. Well, Fatima, for those who have been here before, and even for those who have not, we jump right into our power points. So power points are 3 words or phrases that describe who you are, give us an understanding of your sense of being. So that being said, Fatima, what are your power points?
All right. The word grateful comes
Mm,
to mind right away.
okay.
Grateful for everything. Creator,
Okay.
I would say someone who understands her ability to create. And then lastly, I would go with probably love.
Mm,
Putting love forward and first in everything that I do and treating people with kindness, never putting those values aside for any sort of short term gain. So, yeah, I'd say grateful, creator, and love.
such beautiful, nice words. That's really good. I like those. I
Thanks.
like
I
those.
love that you like them.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that comes in as we have this conversation is those words will definitely weave themselves into the conversation for sure. So I am very excited to see how they come up.
Great. I'm
So
excited.
they always say the story is told in hindsight, and hindsight is 2020, right? So looking back on your career and how you got here and your story overall, not just your career. Fatima, tell us a little bit more about your hindsight story.
I love this idea of hindsight is 2020, by the way. I feel like, it's so easy to look back on everything and
Hmm.
just look at it with a whole new lens.
Hmm.
A little bit about me. So I was born in Mali in West Africa. I came to the United States when I was young, grew up in New York City. I eventually studied chemical engineering at Columbia. I knew that I wanted to go into a career that was all around solving problems. I would say that at a young age, I was always curious about how things work, why they work the way they do. And so I gravitated towards engineering. And I would say, full transparency, I think when I was young, I remember looking up like which entrepreneurs like made a lot of money.
There you go. It's all about the Benjamins.
That was one piece, but I really did love mixing things together and
Mhm.
chemistry at a really young age. And so I studied chemical engineering. And then after that, I went to work at Procter and Gamble, where I was on a really cool front end innovation team, building products that are 3 to 10 years away from market. And that was an awesome experience. I was building new products, but I got to a point where I didn't feel like I had ownership of anything. I felt like
Mhm.
I was creating a lot of things for the company and they would make millions of dollars. But I just got to a point where I wanted to build wealth and create something that I actually owned. So I quit my job and started my first company at the time. Coming from an immigrant household, being an immigrant, my parents, like that was something that definitely freaked out about
Yeah.
at first. And I've been grinding it out. I ended up going to Stanford Business School to buy 2 years to work on my idea while I was there, which definitely helped my parents be more okay
Yeah.
with this whole. They still fully don't know what I do. They don't know the details of everything, but they accept it now. And yeah, ever since then, I graduated. I'm still running my company. I've been doing that for several years. I invest in companies as well. I have several ventures that I support. And
Mhm.
yeah, I just love everything startups.
Okay. Awesome. So I think it's very interesting. Like I said, it always comes up, right? You said you are a creator, right? That's one thing that you really like to view, or that's a word that you would use to encapsulate yourself. And right, even in your experience at P&G, you're building things and you're helping them create products that eventually, like you said, make millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, you want to create for yourself, right? And then from that standpoint, it's like you take that experience and you're like, all right, well, I understand product development and how people are able to make these products, and I want to be able to build wealth. So I want to be able to create wealth, right? And you're able to go there. I want to ask you a little bit more about that concept of using the 2 years of school to buy time, right? So talk me through that thought process a little bit. Like, obviously, it's an expensive way to buy some time, but time is the most valuable resource, right? So talk me through that process of deciding business school was the best way to buy time, and what were some of the benefits that you would say of buying time that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I remember at my business school graduation, the first thing my dad said was, this degree is a nice pair of running shoes, but at any moment, a barefoot person could beat you in a race.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, true African dad
Yeah,
fat. Like,
yeah, yeah.
but the reason I bring that up is because I think the decision to go to business school is such an interesting one, and it's not the only way at all to accomplish anything.
Hmm.
You always have to weigh it against the opportunity cost or like
Right,
what else you could be doing. And
right.
so for me, the way I thought about business school is so I had quit my job. I was
Mhm.
doing the startup thing. I started my first company. I went from income to no income. I was living in Baltimore at the time. And I remember looking up different entrepreneurs that I really admired at the time. And I saw that many of them had went to business school.
Mhm.
And when I thought about everything that I had learned about entrepreneurship, surprisingly, a lot of it was online, like
Yeah.
YouTube University,
Hmm.
University on Reddit, like you can find so much online. But I felt like I wanted to learn more about myself as a leader. I knew I wanted to be a founder, hands down. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that it was a place where I could be there for 2 years, right? Take
Hmm.
out, the loan that I needed, meet a ton of people that could either be business partners, that could join my company, could be investors. And then I would also learn soft skills along the way that I couldn't learn online or, some of the hard skills. So those were some of the things that went into the decision. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. Like I can look back now and like what I got out of business school was different from like what I thought I was going to get out of the
Right.
experience. Some of that shifted. And so it's interesting to kind of just reflect on how going to business school impacted my journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, to your point, business school, it really depends on what you're trying to do and the timing that it comes in for whether it's worth it or not, right? People always have that discussion of, oh, is business school worth it? And it really depends on who you are and what timing it plays in your life, right? There are folks who ask me about it and I'm like, well, I think you're a little too far into your career and things are a little too advanced for you to go back. And we're speaking specifically about full-time
Yep.
programs, right? To go back and really reap the full benefits of it. On the flip side, if people are looking for some kind of acceleration or, like you said, to buy 2 years,
Yep.
right, then it's a good way to be able to do that, right? So want to ask you a little bit about the aspect of pivoting from a larger organization to becoming a founder, right? What do you think were some of the most helpful aspects? Obviously, you mentioned the resources that you got from school, but what do you think that were some of the most helpful aspects from your corporate career that helped you from a startup standpoint?
Yeah. So interesting that you bring that up because just recently I was giving a talk to my high school and
Hmm.
I was reflecting back on the things I learned in high school and at P&G that helped with the startup journey.
Hmm.
And I would say something that I did not appreciate at the time was just building presentations and telling a story.
Mm.
I would say the number one skill you can have as a founder or an entrepreneur is the ability to tell a story.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, data is going to get people to believe you, right? But stories get people to care. And when you're trying to get people to give you large amounts of capital, when you're trying to get, people to work for you for free before
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
paid, you're selling a vision. And
Mhm.
oftentimes that vision starts with a story.
Yeah.
And I would say during my time at P&G, we were always building presentations, but
Mhm.
then we were telling different stories depending on whether you were talking to marketing or you
Yeah.
were talking to process engineering or QA or
Mhm.
whatever team you were talking to. And so for me, that ability to do that, I mean, to this day, I attribute it as the number one skill that's
Yeah.
helped me with a lot of what I've done so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is super important. Like, that's a transferable skill, right? Regardless of where you go, that's going to be helpful. And I think one of the big things when people tell me that they're interested in entrepreneurship, they're like, oh, I just want to like break away from like the corporate culture or like be able to go off on my own. I'm like, well, you don't have to disregard everything that you've learned in corporate America, right? There are a lot of big benefits. And I think being in somewhere that has told stories for hundreds of years, right? And been able to tell them through brand and through product that people admire and love and use as staples, that is a good training ground for that kind of mentality and that kind of skill set.
I was going to agree completely with that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that it's like with the pivot, it's always important to make sure that you don't think of it as a leap. Like you don't have to disband everything. And even sometimes from your previous experience, thinking through what did I learn from here that's going to help propel me forward. Right.
Absolutely. And I think so many people who are thinking about making that shift
Hmm.
from corporate to entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to be like you leave your job and like
Yep.
completely like there was a period of time where I was working on workshopping what idea you were going to work on, testing
Hmm.
things out. And what was helpful for me was setting a clear set of criteria of,
Okay.
if these things happen, then I'm going to take the leap of faith,
Yeah.
making that a promise to myself, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like a blind risk,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like going from a salary where you know you're going to get paid,
Yeah.
independent of what the company's doing, like
Yeah.
you're going to get paid, like
Every
going
2 weeks.
to, the startup life
Yeah.
where, like things are, they ebb and flow
Mhm.
like crazy. It's going to be risky nonetheless, but there are things that you can do to de-risk that leap. And I feel like that's something I didn't know at the time, but I
Mhm.
don't know if that's good or bad. Because if I know what I know now, I don't know if I would have like
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
so much.
it's difficult, right? It's difficult because at this point, you think of it of like I'm going to try and de-risk the venture as much as possible, but sometimes you do risk it so much that you don't give yourself enough rope to run with,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, then are you taking enough risk, right? And the risk is what's necessary for the innovation and really to be able to kind of push things forward. So it is definitely a difficult balance for sure. But to your point, people feel like they have to jump in head first, 2 feet in into entrepreneurship. It's like, no, well, you can kind of test it out and see what is working and not, and then kind of go from there. If you don't mind sharing with us, I guess, what were some of those criteria or checklist points? And you can be a little vague about it if you'd like,
Yeah.
if it's personal, but what were some of those criteria or checklist points that you needed to say, like, okay, I'm going to transition fully into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so there were a few at the time. So I remember while I was working at P&G, I just I was so obsessed with becoming an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Like I would be online every day. I would be looking for, I was like, what are all the ways I could get free money first? Like
Yeah.
pitch, pitch competition money, grant capital, any of that. So I
Mhm.
remember looking up all of the pitch competitions in the DMV area. And I
Yeah.
told myself, when I win my first pitch competition,
Yeah.
even if it's $10,000, $20,000, I'm going to take that capital and I'm going to make it stretch. I remember
Yeah.
that being the thing. And I was just pitching everywhere. Like there's this thing called Tech Breakfast. I
Hmm.
ended up going into Kevin Plank, the CEO of Under Armour. He
Hmm.
had a pitch competition. I did that on a whim and won $10,000 for like best entrepreneur pitch.
Hmm.
Again,
So
storytelling.
let's say, I literally was about to say, there goes the storytelling.
The storytelling, man, it was really big. But I also told myself, and I think this is a really big point too. My first company was a subscription box company
Okay.
where we sold health and wellness products. We ended up growing it to, I mean, we were selling to all 50 states. We
Hmm.
opened up our own warehouse in Baltimore where we would do all the manufacturing, the packing, all of that. And I told myself when we started to get our first set of orders from people who were not my friends and my family,
Yeah.
like, that's when I would really know that I have something.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, like that was just like where my mindset was at the time.
Hmm.
I think now having all of the knowledge that I have, there's so many other things that I would test, right?
Yeah.
Like there's some people that even say like some customers are worse than no customers.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You can even get a false signal of like
Yeah,
product market fit. Um,
yeah.
but at the time, that was I was like, hey, if I win some pitch competitions and if I can prove that I can sell this product to people who are strangers, then I know I have something.
Hmm.
And I did both of those things and left my job. And I would say those first few months were like really, really. I remember like
Yeah.
downsizing from this like really nice apartment that I had to living with three other people. I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it makes sense. The sacrifice, right? The
For
sacrifice.
sure.
But that's obviously something that's important to you that you made that sacrifice. And I do want to talk about your current venture right now, Sugar. But I
Mhm.
want to ask before that about the importance of ownership, right? To you, right? You said that you saw that you're making products and bringing products to market that made this company millions of dollars, right? And like you said, that paycheck every 2 weeks, the good thing about it is that it comes in every 2 weeks. The bad thing is it stays there regardless of how many millions you're making for the company. So, what flipped that switch for you where it's like, I have to build something for myself? I need to build something where I have ownership and control.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I've always been very inspired by the idea of legacy and not only what our ancestors have done, but what we can do for future generations. And
Mhm.
so hearing the stories of I'm Malian, Mansa Musa and the Malian Empire and
Mhm.
the wealth he was able to amass and how he was able to give back to people, along the way, I've always been passionate about how to gain more wealth, not only for my future generations, but for my community at large. And so for me, I'd read several books at the time around financial abundance, around wealth. You own a business, you own real estate,
Yeah.
and prioritize assets over accessories. And
Mhm.
if you do that consistently long enough and make smart decisions, then you can build assets that grow and make you money without your time, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
this idea of like trading time for money
Yeah.
was something that I felt like I had to unlearn because
Mhm.
growing up, it was always like you work hard. That's how you get money, right? Like you work
Mhm.
hard. Like,
Mhm.
like even if you have to be the first one at work, the last one there, like work hard. And I
Yeah.
just remember feeling like this can't be the American dream.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
grinding it out every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And if I do it enough and if I save enough, then
Mhm.
like I'll be able to buy a house one day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It just made life very uninspiring for me.
Mhm.
To me, like there's so many other ways to be like you can be entrepreneurial while like working at a corporate job. Like
Yes,
you can be
absolutely.
like there's so many ways to do it. But this idea of just like working until you're tired,
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm referencing. Like that
Mhm.
is what's uninspiring to me. You can become extremely wealthy working at
Mhm.
corporate and investing the right way. You can be
Yeah.
extremely wealthy buying franchises and like growing that. But
Mhm.
thinking about how can I do this without my time?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. It's all very, very true for sure. Has Power Pivots inspired you to reevaluate your career path? If so, look into Power Pivots career coaching. Whether you're interested in career discovery, job description dissection, or interview prep, I take a tailored approach to helping you understand your ultimate career goals and get closer to them. Interested? Fill out the interest form at the bottom of the show notes for your free 30-minute consultation. For any questions, email hatu@powerpivots.co. That's HATU at powerpivots.co. As always, pivot powerfully. I want to talk to you about your current endeavor, Sugar. So, obviously, you left corporate America, you started your first venture, and then moved on to another one, right? So, clearly, entrepreneurship and that path and journey to ownership, that was your set path, right? And have not turned back. So want to understand a little bit more about Sugar, how you started Sugar, tell people what Sugar is, and yeah, understand more
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely. So sugar comes from the concept of borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor. And it comes from this idea that we've always been super connected to the people who live closest by. And it actually resulted as, at the time I was at Stanford, I was very passionate about this idea of community, hyper local community. How do you build a platform where you can buy and borrow from people who live in your immediate proximity? So I kept building out that thesis, building out what that could look like. And I remember being in LA and living in this large apartment building with hundreds of people and realized I didn't know a single person in the building. And I realized that there should be a way to connect with the people who live in the building.
Hmm.
So I mocked up a really, like, the prototype was very simple at the time. And I put a QR code in the elevator asking folks if they want to connect with others in the building. And within a few days, we had over half of the building engaging on this platform.
Wow.
And so sugar, ultimately going back to this like borrowing a cup of sugar concept, it's an app for people who live in apartment buildings, and it allows you to pay your rent, unlock doors, and ultimately earn karma points for being a good neighbor,
Nice.
hosting events, buying and borrowing, things like that.
Nice.
Yeah, and we sell the app directly to property managers because for them, investing in community leads to higher lease renewal rates and people not leaving the building because they have relationships inside.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I think it kind of goes back to even what you were saying with your PowerPoints, right? Even thinking of it from the standpoint of love, right? Having like genuine relationships and being able to take something that's at this point, especially in a larger city, especially somewhere like LA, like people are like, okay, well, I just like live here and then like just go and live my life like outside, right? It's like I
Yep.
lay my head here and then I go and actually like live my life somewhere else. But it's like, no, making it more of like a community feel where, like you said, a lot of us are on the path looking for ownership. Like it's like real estate is not cheap here. So, trying to feel like you have more ownership in the building or of the building or of that community. And it makes a lot of sense. So for you, what would you say is advice, right, that you would have given yourself when you started this journey of pivoting from corporate America to this journey for ownership and entrepreneurship? What's some advice that you would give yourself looking back now? And then what is some advice that you currently are utilizing at the moment?
Yes. That's a great question. I would say it's probably very similar in terms of advice I'd give to myself back then and advice I'm kind of leaning into now. I would tell myself back then that wealth and success are byproducts of following your passion.
Hmm.
And if you live in your gift, if you focus on the thing that you're the best at with the least amount of effort, you will inevitably be successful, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're just executing on your assignment here from God. Like you're
Yep.
just doing what you're supposed to do here.
Yeah.
And whatever that may be, I think at the time, some of the things that I identified as my gifts
Hmm.
in isolation didn't seem like they could be massive things on their own, right? Like
Yeah.
I was thinking super big, like how
Yeah.
do I build this like massive enterprise, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
But what I've come to find is that there are so many people who have built incredibly successful ventures and communities
Hmm.
just by being themselves and or
Yeah.
working on the thing. Like if
Yeah.
you love baking, like you
Yeah.
can become a multi-million dollar baker,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
my latest obsession is the rise of these YouTube shows and like
Yeah. Yeah.
how people are just being themselves and like
Hmm.
putting these like, I mean, some of them are crazy, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
but
True.
like at the end of the day, like if you incorporate optimizing something for success or for wealth too early in the conversation,
Hmm.
remove the ability to fill it with light and with your essence, which is the thing that will make it successful.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would say for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, you run out of gas, frankly, right? You run out
Absolutely.
of gas when you're not doing something that is authentically you and something that you want to do. I tell my clients all the time, you have to really think, what do you want? And be honest with yourself, be truthful, block out the noise, don't do what is the sexy thing to do, don't do what you think you have to do. Really figure out what do you want, because ultimately that's how you're going to be able to propel yourself to keep going. And if you do something just because you think you have to do it, eventually the truth will come to light and it's not going to work. And the first thing that you said reminded me, my dad would always say that it doesn't matter what you do, but regardless, just make sure that you're the best at it. And then eventually you will see success doing it. Right.
Yep.
So I think a
Yep.
lot of times people are like, oh, that makes a lot of money. I should go do that. Well, you doing that, and if it's not something that you have a natural aptitude for, eventually you're going to run out of steam. And guess what? The person who does have the natural aptitude for it is going to keep on going, and you're going to be frustrated because you don't see how that is possible, or you don't see why you're running out of gas. It's because you are not predisposed to it, or that's not really where you want to be. And that eventually happens. It may not happen right now. It may not happen in 5 years. It may not happen in 10 years, but eventually the truth will come to light. Right. So I think it's just important to be true to yourself and really figure out what you want and what you're predisposed to, and really go in that direction, and really focus on that.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. To answer your second question on the advice that's really resonating with me right now,
Mm.
lately I've been thinking a lot about life vision versus career vision. I
Mm.
think we're programmed at a very early age, from a young age, honestly, like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right.
Yeah.
And that answer is usually in the form of a profession. But an affirmation I've been telling myself lately is I am not my work, right? We are
Mm.
multidimensional beings. And it's so much more important to think about the life vision. Like, how do you want to live? Like, how do
Yeah.
you want to spend your time?
Yeah.
We talk about financial freedom, but there's location freedom, there's time
Hmm.
freedom, there's weather free. Like, if you
Yeah.
are very big on like picking what weather you're experiencing,
Yep.
and it's almost more important to go backwards in terms of the type of life that you want to live and
Hmm.
like step into that feeling and be that person already
Yeah.
so that you ultimately attract those things, because there's so many ways to start a business, like venture capital, which is the route, like we've raised millions of dollars for our company. It's
Hmm.
not the only way to run a business, right? There's like debt financing. There's businesses that you can grow with a super small team that you
Hmm.
bring it to, a $2 million in revenue a year, right? And
Yeah.
it's you and a small team, and like you work like 20 hours a week. It's
Yeah.
a lifestyle business, but you're able to do all the things that you want to do, right? Like
Yeah.
if travel is important to you, if
Mhm.
shopping is important to you, if philanthropy is important to you, map out what your life vision is and then work backwards on what are the things that need to be true for me to live in that life vision. Because sometimes the thing that you actually want is way more attainable than, like this
Yep.
super big, I need to go launch this like massive company. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just like you embarking on a couple more side initiatives that get you
Yep.
to the type of life that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's really all about what you want. It's really all about what you want. And I love that concept of thinking about what you want and then working backwards, right? It's like, what kind of life do you want? What does encapsulate? Even again, one of my workshops or one of my modules that I do with clients, the first thing is, all right, envisioning what you want. And it's career based, but you can do it for life as well, right? Like what you want your life to look like, what you want it to feel like overall. So excellent. This has been fantastic. Parting words of wisdom, Fatima. What would you say are some parting words? You've given us so much already, but what are some parting words of wisdom that you would want to give folks who are looking to make a pivot similar to yours?
I would say one of the most powerful frameworks that you should look at if you're thinking about a pivot is a concept called ikigai. It's
Hmm.
a Japanese concept and it translates to your reason for being.
Hmm.
And it's at the intersection of four things: what you love, what the world needs, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for.
Mm.
Right. And if you can, most of us exist at the intersection of two of those things.
Yeah.
Right. But if you can really take the time to reflect, and like you said, Hatu, what do you want, right? Block out the noise. It's
Mhm.
not what people think you should be doing. Remove the need for external validation. Like other people's opinions don't pay your bills, right?
Mhm.
That's number one. Focus on you, what you want to do, what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and like you will live in your purpose and you will be successful. But that answer, that type of reflection can only come from yourself. If you need to go on a hike, like for me, I went on a 10-day silent meditation retreat years ago. And I'm not saying everyone has to do that, but
10 days, that's
sometimes
a lot.
yeah, we could have a whole conversation
Yeah, we'll
on
talk. We'll talk
that.
about that. 10 days. I can't go without talking for one. 10. Woo! I'll come
I
out a whole
wasn't
new person.
I wasn't a big meditation like guru person at that point or anything like that. I was just drawn to doing that. But whatever
Mhm.
environment is necessary to sit down and be in conversation with yourself and ask those hard questions and figure out, have you been running towards something or have you been running away from something? Because a lot
Mm.
of times fear is secretly driving us and we can't really delineate like what is it that we want versus like things that are fears, doubts, limiting beliefs. But get to that clarity and then figure it out from there, right? That would be
Yeah.
my parting word, if that's
There you
wisdom.
go. The words of wisdom. There you go. There you go. Well, there you have it, y'all. There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. Fatima, thank you so much for making time to have this conversation with us.
Thank you so much, Hatu. It's been, I mean, honestly, a blast just having this conversation with you and appreciate you inviting me out.
Of course, of course, of course. And if you want to come back and talk about that 10-day meditation, we'll do a part two.
A whole episode on that.
Exactly, exactly. And thank you all for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe for more. And most importantly, pivot powerfully. Be well, everyone.